and somebody stopped you from getting the smoke out of your lungs.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense. I mean, you're, and you know, the last time you were on, we talked about the two different types of immune systems that we have: the cell-mediated response and the other humoral response, or cell-mediated immunity and humoral response. And so, it does make sense to me, anyway, that you have to let your body do the natural thing, because people want to get well too quickly. Though they don't understand that it takes sometimes like 4 to 6 weeks to get rid of a cough that's trying to shut down an intruder in your lungs, right? It takes a while.
Well, it can, but that's usually a manifestation of a poor cell-mediated response. Okay. Usually it takes a week. If you're an otherwise healthy person, you should be able to clear the debris out, or the virus out, or the bacteria out in a week. Of course, rarely, but sometimes you can't, and then that's the role of the doctor to step in. But that should only happen when things don't look like they're going well.
Mm-hmm. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, and then you referenced the work of William Coley, who was a surgeon who took this long history of the connection between cancer and medicine and essentially took it to a new level. So he was a surgeon, and he was at the Sloan Kettering, I guess it wasn't called that, but Memorial Hospital in New York. Mm-hmm. Worked under the guy named Ewing, whose actually sarcomas are named after Ewing, so they're called Ewing sarcoma.
Interesting.
So this was the number one sarcoma, which is a kind of bone cancer center probably in the world. And the story is that, he was being trained, and they basically did their surgery, and that was pretty much it. And then apparently John Rockefeller's, girlfriend, mistress, or friend, who knows, came, and she had a sarcoma, and Coley treated her, and the usual methods, and then she died in about 8 weeks or so. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty discouraging for him, because, that was an important patient for him. So he actually looked into the hospital records to see how people did with the sarcoma treatment they were using, and he found that basically it was pretty dismal. And the only one he could find who was cured was a guy named Stein, who was a dock worker, and he said discharged without evidence of a sarcoma. So he went and found the guy and said, what happened? He said, well, when I was in the hospital, I got erysipelas, which is a very bad strep infection of the skin, and he was sick with a fever of 104 for about a month, and they never got around to doing the surgery, and at the end of the month, his sarcoma was gone, and years later, it had still not come back. So most doctors would look at that and just sort of say something like, well, that's anecdotal, or some other kind of response. Mm-hmm. But he said, I wonder if there's something to it, because actually at the time there was a lot of work in Europe going on about fever therapy.
Yeah.
So he decided to give his next patients with cancer, particularly sarcoma, erysipelas. And he did that for years. Interestingly, about 40% of the people got better. They had high fever for weeks and months sometimes, even though this is the pre-antibiotic era, so there was no way out of it. Mm-hmm. 40% of them died from the erysipelas, and 20% never got it for some reason. He would have them sleep in the same bed, and et cetera. They just didn't get it. He cataloged all these cases and eventually figured out that you didn't need to give people erysipelas, which was, of course, dangerous. Mm-hmm. You could just give them the fever. So he isolated some of the components of the bacteria, and then he added another component of a different bacteria, and he could give graded injections to bring people's temperature up to 104, and he would do that every day for a month, and he got about a 40% remission rate of the stage 4 cancer patients, which really is unprecedented in the history of medicine.
Right. And I'm reading in your book that the irony is that Coley is now considered the father of immunotherapy, which was reported by The Atlantic in 2016 to be one of the most promising new cancer therapies in decades.
Right. It is ironic. Coley his granddaughter, Helen Coley Knotts, actually gave me a manuscript of thousands of cases that he had treated, and you could go through them case by case to see what happened in the x-rays and everything. Like I said, about 40% of them got cured, which is high. A lot of them just never got fevers, which means it didn't work. Apparently their immune system was not able to mount a response. But Coley then, because he was part of Kettering, and I think the guy who became the head of Sloan Kettering Cancer Research, a guy named Lloyd Old, had some connection with Coley's granddaughter. I don't know if they got married or something. Anyways, he knew about this and he essentially inaugurated immunotherapy. And the irony of it is they took what happened when people have infections. So they took a substance called tumor necrosis factor, which your body makes when you're sick, and they injected that into cancer patients to try to get their body to kill the tumor. Mm-hmm. But when the patients got a fever, they would, of course, give them Tylenol.
Right.
Because they thought it was the chemical made and not the fever. Of course, it didn't work then, and so they said, well, immunotherapy didn't work. But and the second irony is if you go to Sloan Kettering and you have bronchitis, they give you an antibiotic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it may be good for business, but it's not good for treating or preventing cancer.
No, it's not. Dr. Cowan, in your book, you write, understanding the role of acute disease in general and fever in particular in the prevention and treatment of disease would do more to improve the health of children than perhaps any other intervention or medical breakthrough. How so?
Give me a medicine to produce a fever and I can cure any disease.
Absolutely. Hippocrates.
If you cure it, that's the whole point of this childhood illness / vaccine debate. The reason children get these febrile illnesses is to prime their immune system. If you mess with that, there is a very constant and predictable outcome, which is that you will end up with children with chronic, seemingly incurable disease. Mm-hmm. It happens every time. There should be no doubt that that's going to happen, and it should be to the point where every time your child has a fever, the parents and the healthcare providers around them should say to themselves, I have two choices here. I can suppress the fever and make them more prone to chronic disease, or I can somehow figure out a way to work with the fever. The only time that I think people should choose the first route is if the fever or the illness that underlies the fever is going to do them acute, harm, mm-hmm. like right now.
Right.
So I'm not saying that one doesn't treat, meningitis with antibiotics. If you're going to die, obviously you do whatever you need to do.
Absolutely.
But to do that routinely is just kind of nuts.
Well, I think we have so much fever fear in this country, and I do think that it is proliferated by pediatricians, especially in America. What advice would you like to give our listeners today about fever?
Fever is your best friend.
Absolutely. I love it. I say that all the time. You should be thankful when your child gets a fever because it means that their immune system is working, right?
Exactly. And if your healthcare providers don't understand that, I think you need to get a different healthcare provider.
Yeah, I would agree. And let me ask you this, because I think a lot of people are mystified by this, if you will. Is there any consistent relationship between the height of a child's temperature and the severity of a disease?
I mean, it is true that a child with a temperature of 105 is more likely to have a serious disease than a child with a temperature of 99.8 or 100. But on the other hand, children with roseola have temperatures 105.
Right.
And they always have good outcomes.
Right.
So statistically, it is more likely that if you have 105, you have meningitis. But the point to make here is a child with 105 temperature and roseola versus a child with a temperature of 100 and meningitis, the child with 100 and meningitis is far worse off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the height of the temperature that's the issue. The issue is how the child is doing and the underlying illness. And that is crucial to understand. It's not the height of the fever. It's how the child is doing and what is the underlying problem.
Yeah.
If the underlying problem is chickenpox or roseola, 99+% of the time they're fine.
Yeah.
If the height of the temperature is 99 and they have meningitis, they're in big trouble.
Well, it's an interesting subject for sure, and we need a lot more education on it. I thank you so much for jumping on the air with us today, Dr. Cowan. A pleasure always.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Thomas Cowan can be found at humanheartcosmicheart.com. That's humanheartcosmicheart.com. The name of his book, again, is Vaccines, Autoimmunity, and the Changing Nature of Childhood Illness. Thomas Cowan, MD. Everyone, we'll be right back. You're listening to One Life Radio.
Hi, this is Vaughn Eaglin. As a licensed professional counselor and supervisor, I spend my career helping people cope with emotional problems. But today, I want to talk to you about nutrition. People ask me all the time for nutrition and weight loss advice, and I always find myself recommending a raw vegan protein, a food supplement called Warrior Blend by Sun Warrior. I wasn't always active and fit. In fact, I was very overweight as a child, and as a counselor, I must emphasize the importance of the mind-body connection. A clean body helps with a clean mind. Start today with Sun Warrior Blend Raw Vegan Protein. For more information, go to sunwarrior.com and start living clean today.
Hi, everyone. It's Bernadette. Everyone knows that I'm a strong believer in the numerous health benefits of cannabinoids and CBD oils. As with any supplement, I always do my research and my homework to find the highest quality product on the market. That's why I'm so happy to announce our partnership with the H Hemp Company, founded by a group of the most experienced and respected names in the CBD community. H Hemp offers a line of innovative products that are all natural and tested for quality. Choose from flavorful oils, restorative body balm, and minty breath spray, all at affordable prices. And for every H Hemp product sold, the company makes a donation towards the fight against opioid and anti-anxiety drug addiction, an epidemic affecting millions of families across the nation today. H Hemp products produce a sense of calm, fight post-workout inflammation, and the company gives back to our community. What more could we ask for? Search online for H Hemp Company and use the code OLR for 20% off your first order. That's OLR for 20% off your first order.
Did you know there are over 3,000 kinds of snakes? And most, being shy, pose no threat to humans, but they are still feared and killed even for frivolous fashion. In his poem Snake, D.H. Lawrence marvels at a snake drinking from a water trough. He succumbs to irrational fear and impulsively throws a log at the very animal he admired moments before. He writes, "And immediately I regretted it. I thought how paltry, how vulgar, what a mean act. I despised myself and the voices of my accursed human education, and I wished he would come back, my snake, for he seemed to me again like a king in exile, uncrowned in the underworld." This is Ingrid Newkirk with Peter, reminding us it's easy to be kind by choosing fake snake over real skin for belts, bags, and shoes.
Purple Haze.
I can't beat that.
Oh, my gosh.
That's
Welcome
fever.
back to One Life Radio. This is Bernadette with Diamond Gray. I've got Kip Watson and Von Eaglin both in studio today. It's Shrink Day. Kip Watson is a licensed professional counselor and supervisor and sports psychology professional, and Von Eaglin is a licensed professional counselor, supervisor, and works with 2 group practices in the Dallas area. He is a certified couple relationship trainer and sees a wide range of clients addressing men's issues, anger management, abuse, and addiction, just to name a few.